These partygoers are scammers. They work for an organized crime group known as Milton. They've had a good year. They've taken hundreds of millions from victims, and now they're celebrating. The scammers make so much, they can afford expensive sponsorship deals to make their brands look reputable.
The fact that they sponsored Leeds Football Club, I just took them as being a proper investment platform. They just want to take your money off you.
There were tens of thousands of victims across the world. A lot of these people were just like the rest of us. They're no smarter, no dumber.
There was never any chance for all those customers. It's all a lie.
I'll go undercover to find out how they convince people to invest.
How are you, darling? How is everything going?
We team up with a man who's been on the inside.
My life changed radically. I have to hide now and think about security.
We join Europol raids on call centers selling the scam.
You don't understand anything I'm saying, even though you just responded to me in perfect English. Oh, did you know that this was a scam? No.
And we travel to the former Soviet states, where it all began. Hi, Simona.
I know who this guy is.
Let's just call him Mr. Red. It took us over a year to peel back the layers of shell companies hidden offshore to identify for the first time the big fish we believe are getting rich on misery.
Losing $30,000 to a bunch of scammers, I was absolutely devastated by it.
Hello? Hi. Hi, this is Jen. Who's this?
My name is Simona Weinglass, and I'm an investigative reporter. And I think I'm about to be scammed.
80% of my clients here started the same as like you. They don't have any experience also in trading.
I'm pretending to be a school teacher called Jen, and I've signed up to a number of trading platforms to see how this scam works.
This software will gonna scan and analyze the 5 major assets in the financial market 24 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Sounds fantastic. Software like this normally costs a fortune, but can I trust her?
And where are you calling from?
I'm calling you from London, UK.
Oh, you're calling, but you have such an interesting accent. Where are you from originally?
Well, basically, I'm not from UK. I'm just migrated here because of this job. We will be going to give you a senior account manager who can teach you how to use the software successfully and show you how much profit you can make on a weekly basis. Okay?
I know all about call center scams. I've been investigating them for years. Now, I'm posing as a teacher who wants to make some extra income to help pay the bills. I'm pretending to be Canadian, as the scammers don't call Americans like me. Because here in Washington, D.C., a team of prosecutors successfully brought down one such scam, sending the woman running it to prison for 22 years.
How big was the problem at the time when you started investigating? Like, why did you even take it on?
Just in the handful of organizations that we were focusing on initially, there were tens of thousands of victims across the world. I mean, there was one victim who had reported losing $400,000. A lot of these people were just like, any of the rest of us. They're no smarter, no dumber professionals. Quite a few people who worked for the government had long careers in the government who ended up being defrauded by scams like this.
3 years ago, I was part of an international investigation with the Swedish newspaper Dagens Nyheter. For the first time, we revealed the existence of a criminal group called Milton. Now, I want to expose the senior men really behind it. Back then, we discovered Milton's front line were scam call centers, where hundreds of young people in Eastern Europe are recruited with promises of big money and a little luxury. For each new victim, they receive a bonus and a hefty percentage of the money they persuade them to invest. Then, the investigation had an undercover mole employed in a Milton call center in Kyiv, Ukraine. When the investigation came out, he went into witness protection. We tracked him down to see if he could help us go further and identify the masterminds behind the scams. We have to protect Alex's identity. We've changed his name and voice. He's paid a heavy price for going up against the criminals in the Milton Group, and now has to live in a secret location away from friends and family. Despite the risks, he's determined the criminals see justice. I hope that with his inside knowledge, we'll be able to piece together the clues to reveal how the criminals work.
During those months, when you were undercover, were you ever scared?
Yes, I was terrified of getting caught. It was very stressful, psychologically. I decided to stay there just to discover for public about this crime and to help police get evidence.
So even though there was a huge expose involving dozens of newspapers around the world, Milton Group is still operating?
Yes, they're still operating, and they started to make bigger money.
As a student in Russia, Alex was trained in cryptography. He's now using those skills to follow the money.
In your estimation, how much money has the Milton Group made since it started?
About $1 billion.
About $1 billion.
Since 2017.
You're saying 100% of people lost money, meaning they lost at least some of their money?
Yes. Not a single cent went into a real trade.
What happened to the money once people deposited in their account?
Victims think that they have a real account with the company, but there is not really any trading, just a simulation.
Fraud is larger than it's ever been. Last year, victims reported losing £4 billion in the United Kingdom. Most people never come forward.
Oh, here we go. Hi, this is Jen.
Hi, Jen. This is Patrick.
Oh, I'm so glad we're finally speaking.
With Alex's help, I'm now talking to the Milton scammers. Patrick works for one of their brands, Koinivo.
How are you, darling? How is everything going? I wish all the best for him and you too, darling.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So how is your day for today?
I want to see what sort of promises they make to persuade me to invest.
How much money do you think I could make in a month doing this?
When it comes to $500, getting something like 70 or 80% or 90% as a return. Not in just 1 month, but the best can happen in 1 single day.
These kind of returns are impossible to promise. To show how the scam works, I deposit $500 in Bitcoin and agree on another time to talk to Patrick. The Milton Group has thousands of victims. Many lose much more than the BBC is allowing me to put in.
I'm just gonna transfer the money to you. Okay, 1 second.
I'm on my way to meet Londoner Barry Burnett, who started making 10-pound trades after signing up with a prominent Milton brand, EverFX. When he saw how well his portfolio appeared to be doing, he invested more. He told us he let his trading advisor take control of his computer and trade for him. This should never happen. Then he started losing money, And this is when the Milton fraudsters asked him to invest even more.
Put some more money in, yeah? Double up. If you put £25,000 in, then you could wipe out your losses and make a profit. And I said, no, I'm not doing that, absolutely not. I just want to just bring my losses down to a manageable amount, and I want to get out. And I must have got at least half a dozen calls from half a dozen individuals in the space of about 2 hours. My phone just kept on blowing up, begging me basically to put some more money in.
Barry says he lost over £10,000. His experience fits a pattern.
What if I told you that we've spoken to insiders at the company and they told us it was all a scam? I am horrified. I'm numb. I can't believe this because I was never really going to get that back. So I could almost think that the moment I put that 10 grand in the account, that was it. It was just gone, you know? It's disgusting on every level. You know, it just makes me sick to think about it, to be honest. Yeah. I could just imagine the misery they've inflicted on other people's lives.
So how do these companies pull it off? How do they get so many people to trust them? The brand Barry used, EverFX, became established through a high-profile sponsorship deal with one of Europe's biggest football clubs, Sevilla FC. It's match day. Two of Spain's biggest clubs are playing their local derby. Over 2 years, the Milton Group spent an estimated €7 million with Sevilla FC to promote their brand EverFX, including glossy promo videos like this. Sevilla even used some of their biggest players to unwittingly sell Milton's brand.
I didn't know much about trading, but EverFX taught me everything I needed to know. Forex and football are both unpredictable industries, but these guys have all the necessary material to help out new traders like myself. So thank you, EverFX.
EverFX, main global sponsor of Sevilla Football Club.
Their sponsorship deal finished soon after the UK's Financial Conduct Authority banned EverFX, but not before they had ripped off 17,000 investors in Spain alone. Lots of the club's fans know people who have lost money on these scams.
Tenemos que exigirnos un mínimo de conocimiento y de decencia, porque el hecho de que una marca se asocie a nuestro club también nos daña.
Hey, Mark. I'm good. I'm in Seville. On a side street, I went to talk to someone who also investigates these scams. Mark Solomons works for an Australian investigations firm that tries to get money back for victims.
The thing with Milton Group is that they tend to they'll hit people up for a certain amount and then they move on, and they kind of like to work in bulk.
I mean, the EverFX logo, it's hard to imagine that most of the fans haven't been exposed to it.
It must be because it's giving them access to a particular demographic that's maybe prone to gambling.
The brand awareness that these deals generate is essential in making these scams appear reputable. We found that 40% of the English Premiership signed sponsorship deals with suspected scam brands outside the Milton Group. This includes Chelsea, Everton, Fulham, Leeds, Liverpool, Manchester City, Southampton, and Tottenham. They were all either investigated by regulators, fined by regulators, investigated by police, or banned by the Financial Conduct Authority, including FXVC, who sponsored Leeds United until 2021, when they were banned by the Financial Conduct Authority. While Leeds made promos like this, FXVC scammed hundreds of thousands of pounds while using its sponsorship to look legitimate.
The idea that we'd been manipulated by a company like that would really make me sick to my stomach.
Quite upset because it was quite heavily advertised as well, and it was also you could do it off the website as well. So not very happy, to be honest.
Yeah.
After seeing that FXVC sponsored Leeds United, Phil and Joyce invested £1,000 with them. The call center soon got to work.
His words to me were, "I will take care of you as though you were my own mother." One of the main things he was saying, "Phil, you do realise you're going to be a millionaire."
Despite the extraordinary promises, the couple say they believed FXVC was a reputable trading platform.
Why would they allow that sort of company to support Leeds United, a Premiership football club? Why? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I took it at face value that they were a good, reputable company.
Phil invested more, betting £100,000 that the price of Bitcoin would go up, and his account showed an £85,000 profit in a weekend. So they put in more and more.
He said all along that you can have your money out. There's no problem to have your money out whenever you want.
But when they started losing money, their account manager told them their balance had fallen below a threshold. So to get their remaining money out, they would have to put more in. So they did, and then lost it all.
We had lost £341,000 within 7 days.
They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who they take money off. They don't care.
I knew he was really deeply distraught over it, and I knew he would be humiliated and ashamed. He literally hung on to me that day, just apologising and saying, I'm sorry, I was stupid.
Leeds United have got a duty of care to make sure the people they're associated with are legitimate companies and not doing these sort of scams.
Leeds United told us, as soon as we were made aware that FXVC had lost their licence, the agreement was terminated. FXVC denied any wrongdoing and told us they fully complied with the ruling by the FCA. The Premier League clubs that responded said deals were ended early, were not renewed, or that allegations against the potential scam companies only came after the sponsorship deals had ended. And Seville FC told us that once the contract ended, there was no more contact with EverFX.
While these shiny videos may be history, no one to date from EverFX or FXVC has been prosecuted for these scams. One of the reasons is that criminal investigations are highly complex, expensive, and the scammers seem to always be one step ahead. In Britain, none of the victims we've spoken to have had their cases pursued by the police. Oliver Bullough was a reporter in the former Soviet Union, but now writes about money laundering and the offshore world.
Am I surprised to hear that the British police have done nothing about these reports? No, that is wearily familiar. If you're famous, they'll take an interest, but if it's just, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Smith have lost their retirement savings, 40 grand, 50 grand, 60 grand, yeah, send in a report and nothing will happen.
Oliver believes that the scammers hide behind a complex series of offshore companies to protect their true identity.
If you are coming at it as an investigative journalist, or more likely as a law enforcement agent, you have to go to every one of those jurisdictions, write them a letter, a formal process, and then receive information about the ownership of that company. That may take you 6 months, it may take you a year, it may not be possible at all. So the point of the complexity is to make things incomprehensible and essentially to try and force other people just to give up.
I'm not about to give up, but I do need some help. In a sleepy town in Germany, I've heard the fight back against Milton is underway. It's an unlikely hub for the high-tech fight against the scammers. The cybercrime unit here, in contrast to the UK, is making arrests across Europe and beyond.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Welcome to Bamberg.
Thank you.
Using digital techniques, the team can follow the crime through the dark portals of the deepest parts of the internet and chase down those perpetrating it. It's directed by public prosecutors, methodically gathering evidence and forensically tracing the huge sums of money it generates.
They are operating like professional, legal companies, and that's what we say, this is organized crime.
And how much money are some of these larger organized crime groups bringing in?
Probably hundreds of millions per year.
Investigating financial scams like these means following the money.
So let's say we have one victim of whatever platform, and we know he transferred his money to this bank account of whatever company here in Germany. And then we have all the transactions of the company, of the bank account, and we see there are so many other victims from Germany and Austria and Great Britain and France who all send their money on this bank account, but those cases are still unreported. And our biggest problem is that we only see the reported cases.
Their investigation is making headway. Last year, they seized these assets from another criminal group who also operated investment scams. But the methodical gathering of evidence takes years.
In the very beginning, we weren't sure at all whether we will identify any suspects and that there will be any arrest ever. But after 3 years, we see there are dozens of arrests, and we were able to identify really huge networks of scammers.
I wanted to know if the prosecutors were aware of who was behind the Milton Group, so I had to ask.
Who are the big bosses of the Milton Group?
No comment.
No comment.
Good evening. Hi.
It's Anton from Carnegie. I'm speaking with Madam or Mrs. Jennifer Preston.
Yes, you are. You're speaking with Jen.
Okay. Hi, Jen. I am Anton Medici. I'm calling you from England.
I've been passed up the chain to a retention manager. It's the same job that Alex had while working in the call center in Ukraine. Then he sold a few different brands, but he has since discovered many more that follow the same pattern. He unearthed scores of different brands, but they all had identical sign-up pages, exactly the same wording in their terms and conditions, and exactly the same login pages. Alex has then discovered that they all share the same unique code in their design and the same online deposit page where clients can choose to invest with dollars, pounds, or cryptocurrencies.
EverFX has the same sign-in page and the same code and the same script and the same structure as all these other websites.
Yeah.
So you're 100% sure it's a Milton Group website?
Yes, I'm 100% sure.
Okay, let's look at how many brands are there total.
152.
Wow.
It's a huge brand network, but are there any other connections? We decided to follow the money. Like me, a lot of people now hand over Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is on a public ledger, which means you can follow where it goes. So it should be simple, but it's not. Because there are thousands and thousands of crypto wallets that channel the money. When I started this journey, I put my money into the brand Coinevo. Victims have been doing this for years, putting money into other brands, including EverFX, the brand that scammed Barry. The money then moves through a complex system of wallets, but ultimately ends up in just a few dozen, we suspect, owned by the people behind the scam. We don't know for sure who owns these wallets, but mapping this network is useful because it shows these brands are linked. We saw my Coinevo money joining a money route from EverFX here, before continuing through to the rest of the network.
So this is a trade that I opened, and I'm not doing so well. I'm kind of in the red.
I've been trying to contact Coinevo, but have heard nothing back. Perhaps they know who I really am, or are only interested in people who've invested more. Antoine still doesn't get back to me, so I decide to cut my losses and withdraw my money. Then I get this email. Hi, Jenny. The passport you've sent us is a fake. I assume you know this. So go yourself, pretty please, with sugar on top. Despite chasing, I never got back the money that was still in the account. So how can we find out who's behind these crimes? When Alex, the undercover mole, worked for Milton, he recorded their 2020 New Year's Eve party with a secret camera in his watch. Are there clues here about who the Milton Group masterminds are? The audio reveals a man called David who was crowned the father of Milton. When I worked on the first investigation, we identified this David as Georgian national David Todua. To simplify the complex connections in this network, we're going to give him a nickname, Mr. Orange. These are photos from his now deleted Instagram feed, showing him at the party with other senior figures of the Milton Group. And him posing with guns. So where does Mr. Orange fit into the wider Milton organization? 2 years after the party, he has an office in a new call center in Kyiv, selling EverFX and other Milton brands. Ukraine is clearly important for their whole operation, but they, like everyone else, were about to get a shock. Ukraine was invaded, and Alex, keeping an eye on scammers from his hiding place, was seeing evidence online that call center staff were fleeing the war. One place he's seen job adverts is in the former Soviet Republic of Georgia. I've come to the capital Tbilisi to meet local investigative reporter Nino Bakradze.
Hi, how are you? Good, how are you? So, Nino, we've come to Georgia because we think that this has become one of the hubs of the companies behind the call centers.
Are you sure it's like a current information?
We have an insider who thinks that they're getting people in Ukraine to relocate to Georgia.
A few months ago, there was a big scandal related to the call centers, and the prosecutor office shut down several offices. But since then, we know that the area is clean and the call centers moved away from the country. There was an investigative story. You can see
I know who that is.
This one?
Yes, I know who this guy is. His name is Michael Benimini.
I've investigated him before. Benimini was charged in Israel with tax evasion, but never showed up for his trial.
I think that we need to investigate for ourselves.
Our own research shows that Michael Benimini, let's call him Mr. Red, registered an early Milton brand, Cap MB, so this suggests that he's been involved for a long time. I'm curious, but it doesn't take Nino long to come back with more.
Hi, Simona. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
She's found evidence of a call center, and it's active.
You were right.
It's called MG Capital.
MG Capital, the company founded by Josip Mgeladze 4 years ago. I found his ID scan and his email address in the business registry. And I have a contract of rental agreement, which is signed by Josip Mgeladze, and he signed the rental agreement in 2019. We identified Josip Mgeladze's profile on Facebook. Then we found out the people on the photos. So we found out a person who worked at the call center, and we persuaded her to talk to you.
We met the young woman who'd worked at MG Capital in central Tbilisi. She doesn't want to talk on camera, so we're not showing her face and have changed her voice.
even now, it is really hard for students to find a new job with a good salary. When I started this job, I didn't know what we were doing in reality. I thought we really were helping people, but when I get to understand what really was going on, I really felt bad for those people who got scammed.
Ivana was told to choose a fake, English-sounding name and never reveal that she was calling from Georgia. She was selling a Milton brand.
It felt really good that I could get out of there before I could do something bad to someone.
But who is Joseph Megaladze, our Mr. Green? Can his other business links tell us anything about this network? We already know that he founded and used to own MG Capital, which seems to have sold Milton brands. But Mr. Green also founded this company. Its directors have included two men who seem connected to the network. This guy, Mr. Blue, owned a company called NASPay, which has provided tech to the Milton Group brands, a company that he sold to Mr. Orange, the gun-loving David Todua. And together with Mr. Pink, Mr. Blue is senior in EverFX, as well as other crucial Milton tech companies. And finally, some of these key companies operated from the same building that housed Mr. Orange's new office in Kyiv. This is all looking very cozy. The offshore world is opaque, with some people spending a fortune deliberately muddying the waters of their operations. But they can't be sure that the past will stay buried forever.
As the world wakes up to the revelations of the Panama Papers, we'll ask why...
Back in 2016, millions of documents that were meant to be confidential were leaked. They revealed the true owners and inner workings of directors of hundreds of offshore companies. They were called the Panama Papers. So let's go back in time and see what the leak can tell us about our people of interest. 4 of them are there. They have a history together and appear to be running a network of non-Milton companies across the globe. But many of these companies have something in common. They're linked to an office block in Tbilisi called the Pixel Building. The paper trail ends here. Throughout all of our Panama Papers investigations, we've analyzed thousands of offshore documents. And one person appears to have founded or registered many of these early non-Milton companies, Mr. David Kezrashvili. But who is this Mr. Kezrashvili? He's a former Georgian politician. He was defense minister during the war against the Russians in 2008. When he left office, he started his business career. Based in London, he can't return to Georgia as he was found guilty of corruption in what he claims is a politically motivated case. Accepting this, the British courts refused to extradite him. In Georgia, he's remembered by some as Mr. Offshore, and the leaked non-Milton company data shows he sat at the center of this network of offshore companies. Our men were given senior positions in these companies, which Mr. Kezrashvili registered all over the world. Multiple roads seemed to lead to him. We've been invited back here by Europol, who have zeroed in on some of the same people as us, and now we're joining them on call center raids. Simultaneous actions are taking place in Ukraine, Albania, and North Macedonia.
We have no idea where we're going. We were told to follow the car in front of us. The last time they did a raid like this, the bosses of the call center were tipped off. So everything depends on secrecy. We've driven into this parking garage, and the German and Georgian police are coordinating their actions. The prosecutors have just walked in, but he told us that the place has already been secured. Would you like to speak to us about what happened here?
I can't understand anything.
You don't understand anything I'm saying, even though you just responded to me in perfect English. Did you know that this was allegedly a scam?
No. I'm not wishing you to take this video right now, and I'm not responding on your questions.
What was the brand that you were selling here?
არიცით რატომ არიან ჩამოსული? ანა თქვენ არიცით ჩვენ რატომ ვარ ჩამოსული? მოიცით ხოლმე, არა ძალიან კარგად. არა, არ ვიცი. კარგი, მაშინ ცოდნა მოგვიანებით მოგახსენებთ.
We are quite happy with the situation right now as far as we can examine all the materials and the people. We see some evidences, clear evidences for a German desk as far as the German market is targeted, and obviously we see quite good hints to such an activity here.
Right now, there are 30 raids across Georgia. In the center of Tbilisi, they're hitting a company we already know, MG Capital.
These screens are really interesting. Here you have a back office of a brand called EcoSales, and you have the names of people that they were calling to get money from them. And here you have 4 British names here. So you can see that this is just a call center that was allegedly scamming people all over the world. And let's see if we can see how much money they got from various people.
Looking through our footage afterwards, I found a note. No liabilities, wants to buy a property, not discussing number, but has savings. Savings less than 10K, very should scam soon. For the German prosecutors, this has been 4 years in the planning, and now they've time to reflect.
We know that, of course, for example, the FCA in Great Britain says scams are the biggest threat for private investors. But on the other hand, we see, due to our actions and our investigations in the last years, that there are also some positive effects, that the perpetrators are more careful and at least do not target the German market as much as they did maybe 2 or 3 years ago. The overall damage is still in the hundreds of millions. Probably we can talk about billions, not only in Germany, but all over the world.
We noticed a lot of British victims on the computer screens in the call center. If you ended your investigation, where would that leave them?
We have to be realistic. We can't save the world. It's already pretty hard work to save the German market. There should be some kind of law enforcement in Great Britain, as far as I know, so that's their main responsibility. And to see it from a legal perspective, it's not in our jurisdiction.
The raids led the news in Georgia. Megaladze is our Mr. Green. He gave a press conference after one of the scam brands was raided in an office he owns.
He says that his company rents out the spaces and the offices to other companies, but he doesn't know what the company who rents the office really does.
So wait, he's saying that he was just renting space to another call center, yes. But he owns MG Capital.
Yes, we know that he founded the MG Capital. And also he mentions that he was a business partner of David Kezerashvili.
So we know that the links between these men go way back, thanks to the Panama Papers leak. Then, the pattern was that Kezerashvili was the link between our men. But if the real links were confidential before, might they be confidential again? So fast forward to the present. The men all seem to have been key figures in the Milton Group, running or owning tech companies and/or the scam brand EverFX. But does Kezerashvili fit in now? Well, he's not really on the paperwork. This is what we can see. He's connected to this company, which used to own EverFX. Through his venture capital firm, he owned the branding and website for this tech company, which built the trading platform and website of EverFX. The email servers for his personal companies were held on the same private servers as those for EverFX, Axios, and New Age. He owns the building in Kyiv where the original call center was moved to in 2020 and where they sold EverFX, and where Mr. Orange had an office where many of these companies were housed, and which was raided in the Europol action in Ukraine. And this gives us a hint of Kezrashvili's social circle. At a wedding in 2018, he was pictured with Mr. Orange and Mr. Red, as well as other key Milton figures. He also has interesting social media connections. Kezrashvili regularly likes and shares Facebook and LinkedIn posts from several tech groups, as well as from EverFX and its successor Axios. And his Facebook friends have included at least 45 other people linked to some of these companies. And of course, he's also Facebook friends with Mr. Pink, Mr. Blue, Mr. Green, and Mr. Orange. And Mr. Red, well, that's his cousin. We went to Mr. Kezrashvili's £18 million house in London to see if he could answer these questions about his role.
Hi. I'm a journalist. I'd like to speak with David Kezrashvili. Is he available? He's not available? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
He wouldn't talk to us, but his lawyers make clear that Mr. Kezrashvili strongly denies any involvement with Milton or that he gained financially from scams. He says that EverFX was, to his knowledge, a legitimate business, and that connections we have found to the people and IT behind it prove nothing. Mr. Chalidze and Mr. Gogashvili strongly deny our allegations, saying that EverFX is a legitimate, regulated platform. They deny knowledge of Milton or any connection between EverFX and the brands we identified, who they suggest have misused its source code and brand to confuse users. They say EverFX has never had a crypto wallet and has no control over how its third-party payment processors direct funds.
Mr. Megalazzi said, "I completely deny these allegations. I am not involved in any way with Milton. I have never owned call centres or any other businesses engaged in mis-selling financial products."
Neither Mr. Benimini nor Mr. Todua responded to our questions. EverFX denied our allegations, saying that they are a legitimate and regulated platform where risks are fully explained. They investigated Barry's case and found he was responsible for his losses. In our anonymous case, they told us her losses were as a result of her moving to an unconnected company, and that they fully cooperated with the FCA. The investigation Alex and I started has culminated in police raids on Milton offices across 5 countries, closing down 15 call centers. But only 5 suspects were arrested in those countries, all just employees. Which is little consolation to the victims of Milton.
I feel completely embarrassed at how well I was fooled. I just don't want my friends to know how stupid I've been. I've always worked really hard for everything I've earned in my life. Losing $30,000 to a bunch of scammers, I was absolutely devastated by it. I just don't feel that I could confidently trust anybody again.
It's taken us well over a year to uncover the identities of some of the biggest players we believe are involved in this billion-dollar scam. Wading through this complex and sophisticated tangle of shell companies, digital evidence, and crypto wallets, we felt able to name them for the first time. Since the raids, Alex has been tracking Milton's crypto wallets.
So their volume is lower.
The volume is lower.
So that means the raids have had a big impact.
Yes, I think it is, because we see a very significant decrease in the turnover.
Good for victims.
Good for victims.
So the raids did have an impact. But our recent analysis suggests the scams are picking up again, now at nearly 85% of what they were. So can this billion-dollar scam ever be stopped?
The money that flows from these kind of crimes through the offshore world into the pockets of a small number of people is so attractive and so corrupting that it's incredibly hard for any society and any political system to conjure up the wherewithal to stop it.
4 months after the raids, we're not aware of any prosecutions of any of the people we've identified. But Alex and I are not about to give up.